Happy Wednesday, and I hope you're doing well. Before we get started with our Wednesday worship service, just a few announcements to run by you. Our first announcement is that our local COVID-19 task force of our local church met last night with a district event committee meeting, and we discussed ongoing efforts and questions concerning the COVID-19. Last night, our task force, which is made up of local leaders of our missional and administrative chairs, met with the CEO of Flowers Hospital, a licensed psychiatrist, the former chancellor of our conference, which is our legal department, as well as local area pastors. And this Zoom meeting was there to guide and answer questions related to COVID-19 and potential reopenings and things along those nature. After participating in that meeting, the task force met briefly to discuss the what might be the future for our church as far as gathering together. Here is the most current information to be updated as we go. Most current information is our committee's opinion and recommendation and decision that for the remainder of May, Skipperville United Methodist Church will not have in-person worship within the walls of the sanctuary. This will give us time to utilize the facility, get it ready for in-person worship, to make sure we have proper sanitation protocols in place as well as supplies, and have proper individuals in place for helping people get into place appropriately. This will give us the rest of the month to get ready. That being said, we hope that the earliest we might meet together for worship would be June, the first Sunday of June. However, that may change. We want you to be aware of that, and we will meet again this month to discuss the ongoing efforts. This may change due to an uprising of the numbers of cases in our area or state, and until the cases decline in our state and area, it is very hard to make a rational decision along that. However, this task force is committed to making decisions that are best for the community and our church family. So be aware. If you have any questions about this task force or any opinions you want to voice out, you feel free to email me or to give me a call. I'll be happy to field any questions that the committee can then look at when we meet together later in the month. All this will be given to you in writing as a formal letter that will be sent out to all of our mailing list in this month. Hopefully by the end of this week, I'll have that crafted and sent for you. So again, no in-person worship within the church for the remainder of May, and we will hope to meet together in person within the walls of the church at the earliest, which would be June. That being said, I do have an important announcement as far as an opportunity of worship. On May the 24th, that's not this coming Sunday, but the after Sunday, we will be offering a drive-in service here at Skipperville United Methodist Church at 11:30 a.m. That's right, 11:30. We'll have a 30-minute drive-in service, so you're welcome to come in. Some attendants will be outside to help line you up in a parking area in our grass area in front of the church. And we'll have a 30-minute drive-in service. You'll stay in your car, turn on your radio to the prescribed frequency, and just listen in to a service together. So we'll be together, but safe. That's the 24th of May. We'll meet together for a drive-in service at Skipperville United Methodist Church at 11:30 p.m. I hope to see you there. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to comment below or give me a call. I'll be happy to field any questions about that. That being said, thank you so much for those that are continuing to give your prayer concerns out through these messages and also through other means to our community. It's wonderful to have something to pray for other than the vast amount of things we have to pray for right now. That being said, also thank you so much for those who continue to support the church through your tithe and donations. That is a wonderful ministry that continues to pour into our church. While we may not have as many expenses right now, the church is still a large entity that requires upkeep, and your tithe towards the church and towards God is very much appreciated. Thank you so much for those who continue to be their due diligence and their commitment to God. That being said, if you were to need anything, please give me a call, give me an email, shoot me a text message, Facebook message, or comment below. Be happy to field any questions you may have. Now, on to worship. He is mighty to save.
Everyone needs compassion, a love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, the kindness of a Savior, the hope of nations. salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. So take me as you find me, and all my fears and failures, and fill my life again. I give my life to follow everything I believe in. Now I surrender. I surrender. The Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. My Savior, He can move the mountains. Our God is mighty to save. Yes, He's mighty to save. And forever, He's the author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquers the grave. And He's mighty to save today, friends.
It may be of no surprise to you that I am a lover of history. I just love history. I always liked that class in school, and I always tended to remember things, tidbits of information that others just didn't seem to click as well from some of my friends. I love history. I love to hear people's story about growing up in a time that I was not a part of, or even a time I may not remember quite as well. I love reading about history and understanding history to how it can teach us today. Perhaps that's why I like the Old Testament so much of the Bible, because the Old Testament tends to have such a rich history of stories of people groups that I really just love to hear more about. And when studying history as a good Methodist, like we often do, we cannot neglect the founder of our tradition, which is John Wesley. Recently, I've been rereading some of Wesley's quotes and rereading some of Wesley's writings, particularly his sermons. And while it is sometimes difficult to read through his 1700 language, his truths still hold true today. One such quote or way of life that Wesley ascribed to that I think is even more helpful today, and perhaps even for this Wednesday together, is that Wesley lived his life by three simple rules. Three simple rules, and he called them the three simple rules of life. These three simple rules, you may have heard them before, are interpreted today's wording is do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God. Again, do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God. Now, John Wesley knew these three simple rules were anything but simple. They were hard to follow. I mean, just looking at these three commands make you very aware that, that actually can be very hard to maintain if you were to try to live that out every single day. And that's the point. They're very challenging. They're simple, but they're challenging. These do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God. Each on their own are very challenging. The first one, however, is what we're focusing on today, is the doing no harm. Do no harm. I've heard that phrase said quite a bit the last couple of days, particularly when talking to this COVID-19 pandemic. And to be fair, I think it's very prevalent. While reading the book of Romans, I came across a moment where I connected this do no harm with an interesting part of Romans. You may be very familiar with it. It's Romans chapter 13. The first part of chapter 13, Paul lays out to his budding church about to submit to the authorities. He says, submit to the authorities because all authorities have been placed there by God, so therefore you must trust God and submit to the authorities as you will. Basically, pay your taxes and follow the laws. Makes sense. This is not only for your benefit, but also for the benefit of society. Paul understood that. But it's in the next section, he has a small, nestled section that we tend to focus a lot on, but for good reason. It comes in verse 8 of chapter 13, and it reads something like this. Owe no one anything, except to love one another. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is fulfilling of the law. This is the word of God for the people of God. Romans 13 is a rich chapter. It goes on from there to have an urgent appeal and then to talk more about this judging of others, how this loving one another might play out. But today, this small section, 8 through 10, have a strong truth for us. And I think if we see through the lens of John Wesley's do no harm, might even be more beneficial for us this particular day. In the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, it is very easy to be, while you're stuck at home, to become, I call it stir crazy bitter, because even I have rounds and bouts with it. I've already shared with you before that I can't read Facebook comments anymore on general news websites or articles because they just infuriate me and others. There's so many voices of different opinions, and while I believe all opinions are worth to hear, that does not mean that all opinions are verifiable or truthful. They're just opinions. That's what they are. My opinion is no more important than your opinion. And the only way that really matters about opinions is if you can back them up with facts. And so oftentimes I find in the midst of this kind of crisis, and let's be real, friends, it is a crisis, that the opinions start getting harder and harder and driving more and more with anger or frustration or desperation. And it's those people that you would think be more level-headed and calm tend to be more and more quiet because their voices are being drowned out. In the midst of this time, I think it is an appeal for us as Christ followers to truly try to live into this command that John Wesley tried himself to live into. That very first one, do no harm. Now, you've also heard do no harm in the eyes of medical professionals. This is part of the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm to a patient. This doing no harm is very, very important. Doing no harm helps fulfill the law, as Paul would say, to love one another. The interesting thing about the law, he first talks about the commandments. The 10 commandments found in Exodus 20 list out 10 commandments that the people of Israel were to live by. This is how you would follow and honor God. If you look at them written out, they list out two groups, 5 and 5. The first 5 list out a commandment section towards God. And then the second section is about towards others, and beginning with honor your father and mother, and then the do not steal, do not kill, and all those other relational commandments. It's interesting that these first 10 commandments, these first instituted laws to the people of God, half are dedicated to God, and then the other half are dedicated to people. As in to say, it's very important that we honor God with everything we do. And the way we do that is applicated through loving others. Paul and many others, even Jesus himself says this when he's asked in the Gospel of Matthew, what is the greatest commandment? He says to love your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. This is the summation of the law, love. And so to do no harm in a world today is very challenging. It is challenging to do no harm. And you might say, well, Bradley, I'm not doing any harm to anybody right now. I'm staying home and wearing a mask when I do go out the few times I have to go out. That's the idea. I believe that truly might be the best way to show love for a lot of folks today. Some of us don't have the means to give to charities as much as we can. Some of us don't have the means we're at risk, and so we don't need to be out and about. The best way that you can show love right now is to help flatten the curve, to stay home when possible, wear a mask when you are in public, and to make sure that we help to flatten the curve. Others that might find themselves in better health and could have a small amount of more risk need to help out in food pantries or food distribution. Maybe make masks if you can sew. And of course, I've said this before and I will say it again, your prayers are primary. They are so important. To pray for others, especially those by name around you, are so foundationally important to the Christian life. This is how you can love your neighbor. And to show love is to write letters, to make phone calls, video conference, or however you may, and you're comfortable with technology. We all can pick up a pen and a piece of paper and write a letter. And if you can't afford a stamp, then you definitely can make a phone call. And if you can't do that, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll help you with either one of those things. To show love to a neighbor, to show love to our friends, our family, strangers around us. In a time like now, may seem a little odd, but in some ways it's just common hospitality. It's just being a good old-fashioned Southerner, to treat your mama right and treat others the way you treat your mama. That's the way I've heard that said. We should treat others with love and dignity, to have a level head in the midst of this pandemic, because we all acknowledge that it is so stressful right now. Nothing's the way it should be. We're not meeting in church the way we want to, and we're not doing life the way we want to be doing it. It's uncomfortable. It's not convenient. It's just not good. But by complaining, having a hot head about it, it's not making the problem go away. What might be the best is to take a cue from Paul. His first section of this chapter says to submit to the authorities, professionals, because there's no one in authority that's not been placed there by God, or is not under God's ordinance, that is. And then from there, he says to fulfill the law. If you truly want to be fulfilling of the law, God's law now, is to love your neighbor. Love is the fulfilling of the law. This is foundational for us today. So the challenge for us today is, how can we fulfill this law more so? Again, this rule of do good, and this do no harm, rather, is a very hard, law or rule to live into. How might we do that better? How might we grow into that? I am so comforted when I hear stories of all my friends in areas and you at home that are writing letters, making phone calls. I've received many letters myself. I've been sending out letters as well. And it's been so comforting to get letters from our congregation, knowing that in this time of crisis, all of us, that we are reaching out in love to our neighbors and friends. That is such a wonderful thing. And so I encourage you to continue your letters, continue your phone calls, continue how you may doing that. And as we continue to have this opening up of the state, do this with a level head and apprehension, to understand that while things might improve pretty soon here, they'll only improve as we continue to do step-by-step incremental changes. And we'll do that together as a church and as a people. And one more thing to close today, a quote from our bishop, which is not unique to him, but I heard him say it most recently. The church is not closed. Our church building has been closed recently. The doors have been locked, the power's still on, but lights are off, the air conditioner units have been turned off. The building has been closed. The church is open. We today, friends, are challenged to be the church. And one best way we might observe to the world, to show the world what the church is really about, is to love each other and love others around us. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. If you wish to fulfill the law, God's law, how might we show our love to others in a cool, calm, level-headed way today? How might we together, as the church who is not closed, while we cannot meet in our church building, we can meet together continually and still serve the God who we love and loves us immensely, to show that same love to those around us. How might we do that better each and every day? I'd love to hear your comments about that. Comment below if you have an idea how we might show love or how we might reach out to our community. And I'm serious, as things start opening up, I would love for our church to get together as we can and to help out and reach out to our community to all the needs that are starting to arise, whether that's making masks, delivering food, writing cards, doing a prayer chain, whatever it might be. The ideas are endless. Please comment below if you have an idea of how we might reach out to our community. I'd love to hear them and how we might could do that together and show love to our world. Until next time, friends, I love you and God loves you. And if you need anything, I'm just around the corner. God bless.